Hello, welcome to the video on 4.2 ANOVA. My name is Dr. Lydia Jiroki and I want to walk you through the process of assessing your ANOVA output. There are 5 objectives for this video. 1. Review the worksheet. 2. Copy tables. 3. Identify key information. 4. Fill in the top part of 4.2. And 5. Reflect and complete the bottom half of 4.2. A quick comment before we get into this video. You can skip to specific content using the table of contents listed in the description. This function may only be available if you watch the video on YouTube. You do not have to watch the video from start to finish unless you want to. The left image is a blank worksheet available on Blackboard. We need to complete the sheet in order to make sure we have everything we need to complete Part 4.2. The first 4 questions should all be listed in Part 1 in the problem statement. It is likely that our surveys did not match up exactly as we planned though. You need to list the research question you actually tested in this sheet. Then create the appropriate hypothesis based on that question. Lastly, identify the variables that you used in the analysis. What was your dependent variable? What was your independent variable? And what were the names of the groups in the IV? A quick comment before we move on. The blank example shows 4 questions. In the completed example, you'll see 5 questions. The 5th question is called post hoc. We need to make sure that we've identified which post hoc analysis we've completed. In my case, I used LSD. Next, we need to copy over the tables from Part 3 that were in the analysis. Table 1 is our descriptives table. Table 2 is our homogeneity of variance table. Table 3 is our ANOVA table. And our last table, number 4, is our multiple comparison or post hoc table. You should have filled in all major parts of the worksheet now. It is time for us to look at the questions in Part 4.2 so we know what numbers to pull. I recommend having the pages open side by side. I'm going to switch my screen so you can see what I mean. Before we begin reviewing our data for the decisions page, I want to review the steps for running an ANOVA one more time. On my screen, you can see the question I've selected as I'm working with my trick-or-treat data. My question is, do neighborhoods of trick-or-treating influence the number of full-size candy bars obtained? My hypothesis is that wealthy neighborhoods will give more full-size candy bars than other neighborhoods. My dependent variable is the number of full-size candy bars. In SPSS, it's called full-size. My IV is neighborhood of trick-or-treating or area in SPSS. Group 1 is my neighborhood, Group 2 is nearby neighborhoods, Group 3 is wealthy neighborhoods, and Group 4 is apartment complexes. Let's run our ANOVA and see what we actually get. Alright, in order for us to run our ANOVA, we're going to go to Analyze, Compare Means, One-Way ANOVA, and we're going to hit the reset button so that it's fresh for us. We're going to right click so we see the names. We know that our dependent list is going to be our outcome variable or DV, and we have full size. So we're going to click and move that over. Our independent variable or factor is going to be area. So we click on that and we move that over. Now we need to make sure we pick a post hoc. We're going to go with LSD. And then we need to click on options. We want descriptives and we want our homogeneity test of variance. Homogeneity of variance test, I'm so sorry. Then we'll click continue and then we'll click OK. And boom, we've got our table. So we're going to right click and copy. And these are definitely going to need to have a little bit of formatting done. Paste. Oop, that was not how we wanted it pasted. Let's try the right click. That's what we want. Homogeneity test. Copy. And paste that one. I'm going to move that up because I'm pretty sure those can fit on the same page. And then for our ANOVA table, we want this guy. Copy. And we're going to paste that. And then our multiple comparisons or post hoc, we need to scroll down a little bit. And this is our table. And we're going to copy. And we're going to move that over. So now we've got a completed worksheet that has all of the data that we are going to need to find and use to complete our decision table page. Our first question is the model statistically significant or not? In order to answer this question, we need to look at the ANOVA table. So that's our descriptives. This is our homogeneity of variance. Here's our ANOVA table. Let's highlight our F statistic and our p-value. So we have F right here. I'm going to put that guy in yellow. And our sig or p-value is 0, and we're going to put that one in green. Now we need to make sure that we never report a p-value of 0.000, and that's exactly what's happened here. What this means is that if we continued writing decimal places, at some point we'd find a number, but for the first 3, it's still 0. So what we're going to do, instead of reporting 0.000, we're just going to say that p is less than 0.001, as is notated over here. So based on our p-value, we can determine if the model was significant. If the p-value is less than 0.05, then we know it's significant. If it is greater than 0.05, then we know it is not significant. Next is our assumption decision. Did we pass or fail our assumption test? In order to find out, we need to look at our homogeneity of variance test. And we're going to use that first line based on the mean. So we go over to sig and we see 0.000. So that's a p-value less than 0.05. And if you're not sure how to interpret this, feel free to review the Interpreting SPSS p-value sheet on Blackboard. But I'm going to highlight this so that way I can know to pull this. I'm going to put this guy in blue. Now we're ready to make a decision about our null hypothesis. Do we fail to reject it because there was no difference, or do we reject it because we found a difference? This will also help us answer the group difference question. If you fail to reject, then there are no differences between the groups. If we reject, then we found a difference in the groups. So we're going to go over and we're going to start filling in some of these answers. So for model, we found it was statistically significant. For p-value, report the x. This one is going to end up being f instead of p. F is equal to, where was it? There we go. For me, it was 19.261. The p-value is going to be, is less than 0.01. And then when we look at our assumption table, we see that we failed the test, and that's because our p-value was less than 0.001. For our null hypothesis, when we look at our ANOVA, we see that we found a difference. We just don't know where it's at yet. So we know that we are going to reject the null hypothesis. I'm going to make sure to take out the brackets. And then we're going to look for significantly different groups. We haven't determined that information yet, so we're going to start looking at our post hoc or multiple comparison table to figure that out. If we found differences, we need to examine our post hoc table to find out which groups are different. We are going to look at the sig column of the multiple comparison table to see what comparisons, if any, have a p-value of 0.05 or less. We will then list all of the different groups and the associated p-values next to that in the significantly different groups question. So here on the decision page, we just want to find out which groups are different. And so we go over to this table, we see that this is the starting group, this is the reference group, and then this column is our sig column. For me, to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to highlight all of these columns, and I'm going to go to, let's see, that's not quite, oh, I'm going to table design, that's what I want. And I want this to be, let's say 2, 4, and the outside borders. So that way it kind of helps my eye track and stay on that column. Now that we've got this column bolded, what I want to do is find anything that's less than 0.05. So I see here is less than 0.05. I see here is less than 0.05. I see 3 that are less than 0.05, and then 1 more. One of the things we want to be very careful about, though, when we start looking at these tables is that we understand that this table has a lot of redundant information. So it's very likely that whatever this cluster is, that this is actually what we want to look at. So if we see up here, my neighborhood versus wealthy neighborhood is different. We see nearby neighborhood versus wealthy neighborhood is different. Then with wealthy neighborhood, we see all 3 are different. And the last group is apartment complex versus other neighborhoods, and we see that it's wealthy neighborhoods. So really what we found with this table is that wealthy neighborhoods were statistically different from the other neighborhoods versus my neighborhood versus other ones wasn't different. Nearby neighborhoods versus other wasn't different, and apartment complex versus mine and nearby weren't different. So we definitely want to make sure that we focus on whatever that wealthy neighborhood, those people produced more full-size candy bars than their competing neighborhoods. So what we need to do now is transfer that information over to our statistically significant groups. So we are going to go with group 1. We're going to take out the example. Okay, that. Oops. Okay, delete. And then we are going to have group 1 which for us is actually group 3. We're going to stay with the subscript notation, so that way it keeps us from being too long. Group 3 versus group 1, p-value was, all of these are going to be, p-value was less than 0.000, comma, and I'm going to copy this. Before I copy, I'm going to actually delete this. It's 1 versus, oh, that's what we did. 1. There we go. We're going to copy that, and then we're going to paste it twice, comma, paste, comma, paste. So we have 3 versus 1, 3 versus 2, and 3 versus 4. And then all of those are going to be the same p-value of less than 0.00, they need 0.001. Make that adjustment. And there we go. We have our statistically significant groups. Alright. After answering those questions, we now need to fill in our table. So let's go back up to our descriptives. And we know for group 1, we have the name of my neighborhood. So we're going to make these shorter. So we have mine, we have nearby, we have wealthy, and we need to add one more column. I'm going to adjust these so that way we've got space for that one additional column. And plus. And then we have apartment. Okay, and we need to get the means for each of these. So the mean for this one was 0.40. The mean for nearby was 0.24. The mean for wealthy was 1.93. And the mean for apartment complex was 0.11. And what this tells us is that by and large, people don't give out full-size candy bars on Halloween. In wealthy neighborhoods, you might get 2. So is it really worth it to travel that far to get 2 full-size candy bars? Alright. And then we need to make sure we put in the dependent variable name, which for us was full size. Alright, so that table is relatively simple to complete. We need to also make sure we bold these. So we've got the formatting, and beautiful. This next table is going to take a little more adjusting because I have 4 groups, so I'm just going to pause this and pop back up with it fixed and ready to go. This is what my revised table looks like now that I've added that 4th column, because I have 4 groups, so I need to make sure to report all of those numbers. So what I want to do now is I want to copy this column, Control C, and then I'm going to go over here and right click, and if I'm lucky, yes, so that's what I want. Now I'm going to go back in, I'm going to delete these asterisks. This is just the way that SPSS notates statistical significance. I need to make sure that these decimal places are lined up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have them be left justified. And that's perfect. And then the p-values, I can do the same thing. So Control copy, and then we paste, we'll highlight and paste. And then these I'm going to have be centered because they're all the same number of decimal places, so we're good. And then the next thing I need to do is go back in and put these names in this column, in these columns. So we have mine, we have nearby, we have wealthy, and we have apartment. And then to make this go a little bit faster, I'm going to copy and paste and paste and paste, copy nearby and paste and paste and paste, copy wealthy, copy, paste and paste and paste. Then our last one, and paste and paste and paste. So you can see what I was saying earlier, that this table isn't particularly hard to build. It's just a little bit time consuming because of the amount of information, especially redundant information, that's in this table. Alright, and that should be the end of us building tables for ANOVA. Once you've completed all of your tables, you will need to reflect on your findings and the process that you went through. In the conclusion, I want you to report an APA correct reporting of your F statistic. You will need to find this information on your own. Some final comments. As always, make sure to update your page numbers. This latter half of each decision page is testing your critical thinking skills and your writing skills. The quality and clarity of your answers will have a serious impact on your grade. I expect you to apply terms and concepts that you've learned this semester to your answers. Best of luck, and as always, please feel free to contact me with any questions.